Good afternoon, everyone, and wishing you a happy new year. I hope everyone had a fantastic new year. And if you made those resolutions, hopefully you'll be able to keep some of those resolutions. And we are excited to kick off our family and friends updates for 2024. And we thank everyone for joining us today. My name is Petronila Ntebele, and I'm the Director of Strategic Communications and Stakeholder Relations, and I'll be guiding you through today's program. Before we proceed, I would like to start by giving the land acknowledgement. I am an immigrant. I was born in Zimbabwe. My family and I came to Canada in 2010, a place we now call home. I would like to acknowledge that the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty is signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. We also acknowledge that we are all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Today, we pay tribute to the ancestors of those of African and indigenous origin and descent. Before we begin our meeting, there are a few updates and housekeeping items I would like to highlight. We ask that you please use the Q&A function to make a comment or ask a question. On your screen shortly is our agenda for today. We are going to have our CLTO influencers who are going to share their vision for 2024. And our fireside chat, we welcome Agnes Samler, one of our 75th anniversary storytellers. Kindly let Atam Perederi know if you're experiencing any technical issues. Atam has put, or he will put his details in the chat. As we start a new year, we'd like to thank all of you for your continued support and participation in our family and friends updates. Our community is only growing, and we are truly grateful for that. I'm also excited to share that our family and friends webinars will have a new format in 2024, with live and recorded webinars being held every alternate month. We received your feedback from the family and friends updates we had last year in November and December. And taking note of the inputs, we are trying to make the webinars more accessible and relevant to you. Thank you for sharing your feedback with us. You also shared with us topics you want to hear more about in 2024. We'll take that into consideration. These topics include passport funding services, health and financial rights, supports and programs for seniors, job opportunities and placements, stories from parents and caregivers that are successful with issues like respite and support, short and long-term plans for services and housing initiatives. So we'll take some of these issues into account as we plan our agenda for 2024. Once again, thank you for sharing your feedback with us. We'll share more information in the coming weeks. And now, without further delay, I would like to invite our CEO, Brad Sanders, to give us his welcome address. Brad, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Petronella. Nicely done. Welcome, everybody. Good to see everybody on a Monday morning with a bit of sun cracking through the sky. I'm here with really only one major update. We need your help. Developmental Services in Ontario is going through one of our most significant financial struggles of the time that I've been involved in the sector. And I hear that from many of my colleagues. We are asking you, and I'll come up with an ask in a few minutes, so make sure, I know you're all in front of your devices, so that the ask will be easy, but have your devices ready. As you know, costs continue to rise for all the services and businesses and organizations that are out there, and it's becoming an increasingly difficult circumstance to operate within as a not-for-profit. Most of our spend, most of the money that we spend as Community Living Toronto, most of the money in the sector goes towards our staffing costs, which continue to rise, and other costs continue to rise too. The the last time, the way that funding works for organizations like ours is that the province provides us an allocation every year, and basically that allocation carries forward year to year. What we don't often have an opportunity to do is negotiate for more based on rising costs, inflation, collective agreements that might be settled, increases in staff costs, that type of thing. That's resulted that in the last about 20 years, the sector overall has received less than 4% increase to our base budgets, whereas the cost of living in the province has gone up close to 40%. So there's a graph out there that shows that gap. It's significant. The sector's at a breaking point, and we're advocating very directly with government to say that the situation within our organizations is at a breaking point. One of the ways we're doing this is through the hashtag 5to Survive campaign, which is pointing out to government what the pressures are in the sector and making the request that our budgets increase by 5% this year with what we're calling a critical stabilization funding. The sector needs to be stabilized as we go into our journey to belonging transformation. We don't know that we can hang on for another 3 or 4 years while a funding model is developed. So this is a very important initiative that we are undertaking. We've been doing a ton of work. Organizations all across the country, or all across the province, have been meeting with their MPPs, have been on local radio, have Chris Beasley, the chair, the CEO of Community Living Ontario, has been on morning shows and news shows. CEOs and executive directors from across the province have done the same thing. We've gotten a lot of attention, but we need your voice. One of the ways we're doing that is through a petition. If you've got your phone or if you've got your computer in front of you, I would encourage you ask politely that you take out your Google or search engine or whatever you use, type in those words there, hashtag 5to Survive. The first hit that comes up is a link to the Community Living Ontario's petition site. If you go there, and I'm looking at it now, there's a title page that says Make Your Voice Heard. It talks about the number of people that have signed up. When I went on this morning, there was 5,656 people that had signed up. And as you can see now, there are, well, unless I haven't refreshed lately, but there's 5,664 people. We are trying to get to 10,000. It's very quick to do. If you fill out your name, your email address, and your postal code, the magic of the internet will send a letter to your local member of provincial parliament. We'll also send something back to you that will confirm that you got that your note was sent. And it's just adding to that voice. We want to show that developmental services is an important part of this province. It's part of our infrastructure. It supports people all around the province. We've been excellent stewards of public funding, but we are in need of help from the province. Thank you for doing that. I am happy to talk to any of you. If you've got any ideas around how we can do this better, make this more impactful, please let us know. We are presenting in front of standing committees. We're going to pre-budget consultations all around the province. We are doing everything we can. And anything that you can do to help would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, everyone. And with that, I'll turn it back to Petronella.
Thank you so much, Brad. Indeed, together we can do it. This is indeed a difficult time, and we hope that we all continue to advocate for the needs of this sector. Please engage and spread the word with your family and friends about the 5to Survive campaign. As we talk about advocating for our rights, we could not have had a better set of presenters to join us for this next update. I'm very happy to introduce our CLTO influencers, a motivated group of people who are raising awareness for the rights of people with intellectual disabilities and promoting a positive change. It is my pleasure to call upon CLTO influencers Lorraine Bradley, Samuel Forbes, Joshua Splu, and Carmen Woolacott, Community Engagement Coordinator at CLTO, to take the floor now. Carmen, over to you, team.
Thank you, Petronella. Tracy's actually going to be presenting with us as well.
Tracy, are you here? And Tracy
I
as well?
am.
Go ahead.
Could I get the next slide, please? Thank you. So the influencers have been meeting a lot the last couple of weeks, and they asked if I could do the introduction. So I graciously said yes, of course. First of all, thank you so much for inviting us once again to be here. I know Sam, Lorraine, and Josh, Farah, Nelson, and Jenna are so excited at any point in time to come and talk about themselves. Just so you know, Farah, Jenna, and Nelson will be presenting next month, so I hope you come back to hear them. But I just want to remind you who the influencers are. So they've asked me to introduce this slide. It says we are a group of people who have a developmental disability and lots of abilities. Together, we want to raise awareness and create positive change in our communities and beyond. So during this presentation, you're going to hear just a tad bit about what the influencers have accomplished last year and what they're hoping to work on this year. Okay, next slide, please. And I'm going to let Carmen talk a little bit about the highlights.
Thank you, Tracy. So hello, everyone. My name is Carmen Woolakut. I'm a community engagement coordinator, but I do a lot of work supporting the influencers. And believe me when I say the influencers have been busy. So this past year, they've used their platform to speak on the importance of belonging. They've shared their personal experiences, as well as promoted inclusivity. So their efforts go beyond our local community. They're actually making strides worldwide. So here we can see Sam, who's pictured in New York, addressing the United Nations General Assembly, where he emphasized the importance of accessibility and easy to understand communication. But their international efforts didn't actually end there. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see that they've taken, there we go. We'll see that they've taken trips overseas to see how communities thrive and continued their virtual partnerships with groups like Alexandria Self-Advocacy Resource Group in Egypt. But that's not to say that they've only formed these new connections overseas. They've also made several local connections through their presentation to the community, to other advocates, and to students like those in the DSW class, so the Developmental Service Worker class, at Durham College, or even our Tattle Creek Montessori, which is right across from 20 Spadina. So they not only share their insights on various topics, but they encourage others to ask questions and engage in meaningful conversations. So through these insightful discussions, they highlight the significance of fostering a sense of belonging in communities worldwide while recognizing the diverse and unique contributions of individuals. So although it's been a lot of hard work, they've made time to have fun with their advocacy as well. You can see things from supporting the United Way campaign events to attending the Good Stuff with Mary Berg. The influencers have actively been involved in making a positive impact while having a good time at the same time. So not only have they given their helping hand when it was needed, but they also celebrated events like Community Rocks. They had even joined Minister Kamal Khera in a cake cutting ceremony for International Day of Persons with Disabilities, really showcasing the joys of creating an inclusive and supportive community. So this all goes to say that the influencers have shown that they're not just influencers this past year. They're change makers, spreading their advocacy efforts globally and speaking on the importance of belonging while making a difference in the lives of many. So with 2023 behind us, I'll give it back to Tracy to speak on what's to come for 2024.
Next slide, please. So these are just a couple of the highlights that Josh, Lorraine, and Sam wanted to speak about today. So they're going to be speaking a little bit about how they're going to continue with their advocacy and engagement, their partnership or participation in Community Living Toronto's Employee Resource Group, connecting with community through creative expression, and their outreach to community stakeholders. Can I get the next slide, please? So now we're going to ask Sam to talk a little bit about his participation in the Employee Resource Group, the Pride Collective.
Hey, I have become a member of the Pride Collective at CLTO. The Pride Collective is an employee resource group centered around making sure individuals who identify as LGBTQIA are treated with respect and dignity. As an influencer, it is important to me to be a part of this group to give my views on the community. It is important to give my views on the human rights aspect of it and to make people understand why this is important. As an employee and as someone who identifies as a self-advocate, it is really important for someone with lived experience to be part of this group because you get the actual perspective of someone with lived experience and not having someone speak for them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sam. I mean, the influencers are definitely hoping to join more of the employee resource groups. But Sam was gracious enough to take the plunge and be the first one to join. And I know he's very excited to be part of that group. So it's amazing. Is there anything else you want to say, Sam, or are you good?
I wanted to say that it's been a real pleasure hanging out with the influencers, and it's been really great and fulfilling to be a part of groups like the Pride Collective who really promote talking about human rights and just talking about things that I'm really passionate about. So I really wanted to say that it's really fulfilling to be doing things like this.
Thank you, Sam. Can we get the next slide, please? And so now we're going to hear from Josh, who's been working very hard on a creative little project. And I'll let Josh talk a little bit more about his project.
Thank you, Tracy. So for my role as an influencer, I'm currently in the process of making my own YouTube series where I demonstrate how to make Japanese paper folding art called origami like this and on screen. I'm doing it because it's a hobby I enjoy doing and giving, and was able to turn it into employment with CLT. I've been hired by CLT to make these art pieces for many big events such as the Moms Retreat, Leaders in Philanthropy, and even a retirement party for an old employee of ours, good old Donna Kralewski. I'm hoping this series inspires more people to try it out for themselves and turn it into a hobby for themselves, or maybe even a job. The YouTube series will launch sometime in February this coming month, and every 2 weeks I'll demonstrate a new piece over on our YouTube channel. Next slide, please. Here's a little teaser video of what to expect from me in the near future.
So that was Josh's little teaser. He's been working very, very hard in creating a series of videos to teach people about his love of origami. And I just have to say, when we were at Tattle Creek, a few of us went over there to talk to the students because they were working on what inclusive education was all about. And the excitement when Josh mentioned how he did origami, the classroom. Am I correct, Josh? I mean, they all just brightened up and they were so excited. And Josh, in true to Josh's form, to spread his love of origami, he made each student a piece and delivered it at a later date, which I know they really, really appreciated. So yes, look forward. You'll get emails, notices. Josh's series will begin in February, where you can learn how to do origami with Josh. Next slide, please. So now we're going to hear a little from Lorraine. Lorraine is the most wonderful person in connecting people with other people. And Lorraine would like to talk a little bit more about how, as an influencer, she's supporting other adult self-advocates around mental health and maintaining friendships.
You're muted, Lorraine.
Okay. Encouraging people to connect with others is very important to me. I have been volunteering and supporting self-advocates to come back to the Foster Clubhouse at 20 Spadina. I believe it, as an influencer, it is important to connect with people in person. We have all been so isolated, and connecting at the clubhouse is helping people with their mental health and is helping friends reconnect. At the Foster's Clubhouse I have attended the art class, the music program, participate in the food bank. I also provide emotional support to self-advocates to live their best lives. Yeah, that's it.
Is there anything else you want to say, Lorraine, about the way you've been, bringing people together at the clubhouse?
Yeah, it's great. It's really great that I'm doing this. And thank you for having me.
Well, I hear from Dee, who is the facilitator of the clubhouse, that she really appreciates every time you're there, your presence. And you're always, every time I pop in there, you're always connecting with people and encouraging them to use their voice, right? So as an influencer, you're trying to support the other self-advocates that are there to use their voice, expressing their wants and their needs, both with family members and staff and in the larger community. So thank you, Lorraine, very much.
You're welcome.
If we could have the next slide, please. So before we start this video, again, they nominated me to talk a little bit about this, so I will. We're at a time with the influencers that we're ready to open it up to have new people join our influencers. So what we're going to do here is you're going to see a little bit of their introductory video, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the process if you want to also be an influencer as well. If we could play the video, please.
Do you have a passion for advocacy and want to make a real difference in the lives of people with disabilities?
If you enjoy social media as a platform to amplify your voice, think that CLTO Influencers is a perfect place for you.
We're excited to invite you to join the CLTO Influencers, a dynamic team committed to promoting inclusion, raising awareness about disability issues, and creating positive change.
As a CLTO influencer, you'll have the opportunity to present to community groups, share your unique perspectives, and engage with others who share your passion for making a difference.
Come and join us to be an influencer. It's a lot of fun, it's a lot of work as well. But it's a rewarding thing to do for others.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Lived. Was experience is. valuable and your voices shape of the future.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to follow along on the CLTO influencers journey to create positive change.
If we can have the next slide, please. So I'm not sure if it was just on my end, but there was a bit of delay in the video. Oh, okay, it was everywhere. I'm not sure what technical difficulty that was. So in order, if you're interested in nominating someone to be a CLTO influencer, or you yourself are someone who identifies as having a developmental disability and are receiving services from Community Living Toronto, we will be sending out a couple of things. One, you'll see the video again. We'll send that out to all staff and members of Community Living Toronto, just to get a better idea of what the influencers actually do. And then you'll be asked to fill out a Microsoft form, which is very, very simple. If you need assistance to do so, you can reach out to us, or maybe ask someone who's around you to support. And then we're going to ask you, if you can, to submit a resume and submit maybe a video interview. But all this information, if you want, you can contact us at cltoinfluencers@cltoronto.ca, and we will either meet with you individually. If you have an expression of interest, we can tell you how the process is and give you a little bit more information about the influencers. So yeah, so please reach out at cltoinfluencers@cltoronto.ca. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tracy, Carmen, our CLTO influencers, for all the great and amazing work you are doing. You are indeed change makers. Thank you for shedding some light into some of the activities for 2024. And many people are going to look forward to that YouTube series coming up in February. So thank you so much, everyone. We move on to our next program, which is the Fireside Chat. And today we do have a special guest whose story of belonging with CLTO is different and unique from many of our guests. I'm pleased to welcome Agnes Samler, who was the Executive Director at Community Living Toronto for 12 years. And prior to that, she was the Regional Director in the then Ministry of Community and Social Services. Agnes has a long history as an advocate for this sector, and at present, she's the President of Defense for Children International Canada. Thank you for joining us today, Agnes, and Brad, over to you.
Thank you, Petronella. And with just the influencers, great work on that. Love the video. Over my left shoulder, there is a picture of one of there is a frame of one of Josh's pieces of origami that I received a few years ago. It's right below my 1962 copy of a Mad magazine that's got John Kennedy on the cover. So it's in a special place there, Josh. Great work, and great work to all of you for all the work that you're doing. Influencing and making the work that you do interesting and engaging with people. Great work. Keep it up. Agnes, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You had a bit of an introduction there, and you are someone that needs no introduction because you're well known to our Community Living Toronto family. You've been a leader and a friend and a supporter and an advocate. And you were also generous enough to share your story with our 75th anniversary celebration. So thank you for doing that. So we wanted to spend a few minutes sort of chatting a little bit more and maybe getting to know you and your story in a way that we maybe haven't done before. So thank you for taking the time this morning. Maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I think probably one of the most important things for me is being part of a large extended family. We celebrate new babies, weddings, graduations, almost everything, funerals even, and we help each other all of the time. So that takes a lot of my time, but it brings me a great deal of joy, and it kind of grounds you. because you have the feeling this is your family and this is where you belong. I'm also a volunteer with Defense for Children International Canada. We became a section of this international worldwide group in 1989. And I've been part of the group since that time, with the being president for the last about 20 years. We have two jobs to do. One is to act as an advocate for children. And we've done that all the way up to the Supreme Court in a number of cases. And we also are tasked with educating people about the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. So we've done that through some lectures, including one that was a joint lecture with Community Living Toronto. So those have been two important things. And at the end of last year, the end of COVID, really, we had lost a number of our board members. So some of them through health issues, some because their families needed them for other kinds of issues. And it seemed a really good time to step down. And so we have a new president in Irwin Elman, who used to be the child advocate for the province of Ontario, and has taken on the job of president. And I will continue as past president. So and the rest of the time, let's see, cross-country ski, swim, do some kayaking. And once in a while, I try and do something that really challenges me, can make me a little frightened. Zip lining in Costa Rica and things like parasailing in Mexico. So I just try and choose something that's going to shake me up a little. That's a little
Excellent, excellent. So parasailing, I did that once with my daughter, and I felt strongly I never needed to do that again. Probably didn't need to do it the first time, but was it a good experience for you?
For me, once I was up there, like I was, the instructions were in Spanish. So they're hooking you up and talking to you in Spanish, and I'm thinking, what? And they're doing this. So, but once I got up there, it was amazing. Like the birds were flying beneath you. Like it was just the interesting experience. And I suppose, I don't think I felt they were quite good at signals and stuff, because you have to tilt the umbrella thing to let air out so you can get back down. But no, I would do it again.
Excellent. Well, you're braver than I am. You also mentioned Irwin taking filling your shoes, coming in after you at DCI. And I know that's a movement that's been very close to your heart for a long time. Now, Irwin, you also have another connection with him, in that although Irwin was the first child advocate in the province of Ontario, you were the person that moved the advocacy office from the ministry, where it was accountable to a deputy minister, into an independent branch of the legislature. Any memories from that, or anything that jumped out? That was a pretty significant role. Now, I know that that office was rolled into the
Ombudsman.
The Ombudsman's office, so it's not a separate office anymore. But any reflections on that, or how Ontario does in this area around supporting and advocating for children?
I would say when there was an office within government, and DCI Canada worked for, I'm going to say, about 6 or 7 years, going to talk to MPs and so on, and explaining why this has to be separate from government, and how it has to be an independent office. So finally, we got the legislation and went through it. And then they discovered that there was a process they needed to go through, using all of the different parties coming together to choose the advocate. And they had no one in place while that was going on. So they asked if I would be the first advocate, not the final one chosen by the parties, But and that went on for about 6 to 8 months. It was an excellent experience. Do I think it was right to roll it over to the ombudsman? Absolutely not. I believe that children deserve advocacy of their own, and it's quite different. And the ombudsman, this is not to be negative about their job, but the kinds of things, if you go back and take a look at how much of the time of the ombudsman has been given to children's issues, it's very small. There's just so
That's
much.
That's a great point. We used to, at Community Living Toronto, have several touch points throughout the year with the child advocate. You knew who the staff were, there were issues that they were tackling, both sort of the individual cases and situations, but also the bigger systems issues that they were dealing with around adoption and around children with complex special needs. Since the migration to the ombudsman, those touch points and those initiatives have not been prominent. So I do think I would agree. I do think we lost something in this province for our children. Now you have been connected with Community Living Toronto, both professionally and through sort of volunteering since you've retired. I'll say retired, although you're still pretty active. Give us your thoughts of Community Living Toronto, or what sort of has stood out to you over the years of your involvement with us?
Well, I guess I've had a really long involvement with Community Living Toronto. So I'll just go back briefly to when I was in government. And I always thought Community Living was an amazing organization. And that's from a government viewpoint. That a group of families, parents could get together and grow this organization into the quality, to the size that it was by the time I was meeting with people in government. So that was, so even in government, I really had an admiration for Community Living Toronto. And then I was asked if I would be interested in providing leadership to Community Living, and took me not very long, but I thought it was a good fit, and the board thought it was a good fit too. So then I became the executive director. And that's really when I began to understand what it meant, the Community Living organization. And it came from parents like Kay and Jim Shedden and Donna Britton, and your last fireside chat, Laura Parsonson. And these are people who would say over and over, we're just regular people, we're regular parents. But I can tell you, if the issue was around the needs of their children, they were fierce advocates and really moved things so that their children could receive services that they needed. So I guess in my time inside, well, the other thing is self-advocates. Like they were so courageous and brave, and actually they knew really how to get ideas across. I mean, I learned how to understand people who didn't use language as a way to communicate. So, for example, I was at Shadow Lake one day with Susan Bien and her daughter, Rebecca. And Susan went to get some food, and Rebecca clearly was upset. There was something going on. And I thought I should get someone to get Susan. And then I thought, why don't I just try and deal directly with Rebecca? And just by paying attention, I noticed that the sun had moved and was on the side of her face. And so I moved, we were in the shade of a tree. So I moved her back into the shade, and she rewarded me with one of her marvelous smiles. It was just like, so she was able to, if you paid attention, if you listened. And that was an amazing lesson for me to learn, is that if you, that you can really understand people who don't have the same words that you normally use. So that was an important thing. The two things where I thought that I think have been important for community living. One started certainly in my time, but is underway still, is moving from programs to person-centered. And when I became part of community living, there were excellent programs, well-run, quality, but there was a program. And then if you were a parent or someone wanting to join the program, you applied. And if you fit the criteria of the program, you were accepted. And if you didn't, then that program wasn't for you. And now, and even in the time, we moved a long way to person-centered, and now I see that even more, is that people are saying, what is it you need and want? And then how do we actually make that happen? And it could be with a program, but more often it seems to be really identifying what the person really wants and needs, and then making that happen. And that's an amazing, and I know that's going on still very much now today. And the second thing is the strength of people with disabilities. It used to be you were seen as a receiver of service, someone who, had disabilities and needed to be helped and needed to be supported. And more and more, I have seen people, self-advocates, right, speak for themselves, talk about how important their views were, connect with the board and be part of that, actually be really strong and powerful in their movement forward. And even just listening to the influencers, right? So it's not only self-advocates, it's now influencers of other people. And what a powerful message. It's great.
Excellent. You talked about moving away from programs into supports and services that are more suited and designed by the individual who's receiving the support and service. Joe and his team are going to do an update. We've been on that journey moving away from larger congregate settings into more individualized, smaller, personalized support. It is a journey, and there's road bumps and different changes that come along with that. But we're committed to responding to that need. So I'm glad you mentioned that. You mentioned a few names of, I think you mentioned Kay Shedden and Donna Britton and Jim Turner, three people that are no longer with us, and then others, Laura, and a large group of parents in community living that are still actively involved in parenting. With, thinking of Jim and Kay and Donna and others, what was something that stood out to you during your career as sort of the magic that went with people in those parents advocating on behalf of their children? What kept them going? What did you see as, what did you take from that group? Any reflections that you would share with us?
Well, one of the things, that concept, I'm just a housewife or I'm just a parent. And I remember Kay Shedden talking about going to a meeting where the minister was present. And she said, I was shaking in my boots. But I went up to the minister and said, there are no services for my son. He has really significant needs and there are no. And the minister said, no, there's services for people with disabilities. And she said, no. And he said, okay, I want to hear more about this. So that was the, one of the things I think they had, and I heard Laura talk about it at the last fireside chat, is that willingness to risk, to go out, to do something that was beyond the ordinary, to challenge people, even people in power, and to ask for what you need in a way that was respectful, I would say, but also determined. And I'm sure there are parents doing that again today. Like the ones I knew were the ones I mentioned, but I'm sure there are parents willing to do that. And it's also learning from each other and combining. So you don't have to go alone for something, that you can be part of a group and you can talk to each other, help each other, say, okay, how are we going to get 5% more for the service system?
yeah.
How are we going to do that? And then actually getting together and saying, here's some strategies we think will work. So it's that kind of willingness to risk and also to spend the time working it out, sorting it out.
Those kinds of personal connections that people make who have lived experience and are going through something and sharing it with friends and family, community, and political leaders as well does go a long way. You probably heard that John Baer joined our Patrons Council over the summer. And as we were talking about, what his interest was and that, I met him and he talked about memories of people from 20 years ago. And here's a, successful politician who's been the Minister of Foreign Affairs and been all around the world, but still remembers, meeting for a coffee in someone's living room in Scarborough 25 years ago and the impact that that had. So it can't be underestimated. A phrase that became popular over the weekend, so don't take this the wrong way, but is twofer. Agnes, you were a bit of a twofer because, and twofer meaning 2 for 1. So when you joined the organization, your husband Ken also became very involved in the work that we do. Can you talk a bit about Ken and also the award that you've set up in his honor?
Well, first of all, and I'm sure you know this, whenever you go to conferences, the meetings and so on, your time is pretty well taken up, right? With like you're speaking and people are approaching you and so on. And so Sam always accompanied me, but he would spend his time with the self-advocates mostly and getting into trouble sometimes, but they really got along well. And as most of you know, Sam passed away when I was still the executive director here. And the self-advocates decided that there should be an award in his name. So they asked the organization, can we have Ken Sam Sandler Award as a volunteer, a self-advocate volunteer award. And that was amazing. Like, I know that's something that he would have really enjoyed and loved. And it was also, he also had a large pool table that ended up in one of the workshops, but just things. And I brought in some clothes for people, like jackets that they might have admired or shirts. And one of the things that people did that was so supportive is they would come bouncing into my office saying, I've got Sam's shirt on today, or I've got Sam's jacket on today. And
Nice.
it didn't make me feel sad because it was their joy and it was part of my joy. And I was so pleased that the organization agreed to the request to have an award. And it's still there, right? So
Continues today, yeah.
And I know that's something he would have really enjoyed.
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing him with us for all those years and allowing us to carry on his memory. I know it's one of the nicest awards that we do every year at our Leaders of Philanthropy. So thank you for that. Final question as we wrap up. The theme of our 75th anniversary was belonging and the importance of belonging in different ways. What does belonging mean to you?
Well, I read the government report, by the way. Thank you for sending that over to me.
The journey to belonging report.
The journey to belonging, right? And it's two things struck me. One is how far the government has come from, well, did you spend your money well, and did you turn in all the documents you were supposed to turn in? So they have really moved a long way from that. And I think that is something that people with disabilities and their families and the organization should take pride in. There's still some way to go, but that's, and partly it's really understanding that fulfilling the dreams that are part of that report in some way are going to need resources that are not in the system now. So just for Just
not so.
sorry.
But after right, that's kind of it.
No worries.
Sorry.
With reasons why I could not consider. Anyway, I give you a call later.
Okay,
You've got an answering machine.
I have an answering machine and I can turn off the ringer, but the answering machine continues, so.
That's like a Rockford Files episode. That's cool.
So, but belonging, I guess I circle back to family. Like I feel like when you talk about belonging, it's a little like being a family. It's it's sort of having people around you, a feeling that I have a right to be here. There are people who care about me around me. I have a contribution to make. So it's like, it's a pretty good description for me of what belonging means. It's hard. Most of the places I've worked, I have felt like I've been in a family, and particularly community living like that.
Yeah.
People there just treated you like family and expected you to treat them back as family. So I suppose belonging, that's the easiest way for me to describe it.
Great. Thank you. When we talked about this a couple days ago, when we were getting ready for this, you mentioned about how far government had come in their journey to belonging from where it was. And I find when you're in the weeds every day, it's easy to become a little cynical and zoom in too close and that. But I thought about that after we talked, and there has been a lot of change and progression and move in a good direction around personalized supports and belonging and having that, rights of citizenship. We've made progress, and you were a big part of that for many years. So thank you for taking the time today, and thanks for all your dedication and work and service over the years.
Well, and thank you, Brad. One of the things you've done is allowed DCI to have an office in 20 Spadina and to have use of the boardroom. And you know what that means for me is that I'm in 20 Spadina. I can meet the old, everybody I knew, or get introduced to the new ones. And it's been, so that gift was really appreciated.
Great. Glad to have you and glad to support the work.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Petronella, back to you.
Thank you so much, Brad. And thank you so much, Agnes, for taking the time to come and join us this afternoon and sharing your amazing experiences as well as some memories at CLTO. I'm seeing some messages in the chat saying, good to see you again, Agnes. So thank you so much for taking the time. Next, I would like to invite Amanda Ramschitz, a home management consultant. She is going to talk about the training program with parents. Amanda, over to you.
Hello, thanks, Petronella. So, hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Ramschitz, and I am a home management consultant. And today I wanted to present a little training series that myself and my clinical supervisor, Ben Clark, that we've put together as a resource for the community. And it's also been in collaboration with the TDSB. Next slide. So what is it? So this parent training series that myself and Ben have put together, pretty much the goal of these training series has been to provide parents, so that's been our main focus and audience, is providing parents in the community with general behavioral strategies. We've been doing it in collaboration with George Webster Elementary School. So this is a school out in the East End. They've actually reached out to us first and just kind of asked for some resources. And we decided to just put a few sessions together to provide to the community. So how our sessions have been running. So we've been doing a bit of a hybrid presentation. So myself and Ben, we've been in person at George Webster. We've had some parents come out in person, which is really cool. It's kind of nice to have faces in the room with you, but we've also been presenting it virtually. So there's the in-person option, but we also have a virtual setup so that parents or teachers or pretty much anybody in the community could access these sessions online. And what we've really tried to do with these sessions is really try to tailor to parents. And when I say tailoring it to parents, I mean really trying to use everyday language to explain behavioral concepts, because I feel like sometimes as behavior analysts, we get really stuck in our jargon or our technical terms. And even sometimes when we are providing these services to families, we're not providing it or describing it in a way that would actually help the family. So we've really tried to emphasize everyday language and really trying to use concepts and examples that families and even teachers can relate to. So what are some examples or things that they may experience in the home? What are some things that they may experience in the school? Next slide. So in terms of content of what we've tried to cover in this series, we've really tried to kind of change when we're talking about behavior, what are we talking about? So some of the things that we've included is looking at behavior. So that could be everyday behaviors, that could be challenging behavior, whatever action that we're doing, looking at as more of communication and trying to understand it as that. And then in terms of the strategies, we've been presenting some proactive and preventative strategies to try to reduce challenging behaviors. So some really general strategies that parents, while they're waiting for services or even within the home, something that they can start as a basis to start doing before having more services if they need that or while they're waiting. We've also looked at different concepts like reinforcement. So really trying to define what is that in everyday terms, how does that look like in your everyday world, and how can parents or teachers provide that in a really simplified manner. Next slide. And some other things, that's just a further of reinforcement and what that may mean. So again, it is really general and trying to kind of define it in just really simple ways that parents and teachers can apply these strategies in the home. And we're also trying to look at more specific problems. So sometimes a lot of parents, they would like some more information on sleep. So sleep is something that we are upcoming and something that we're doing as well. Yeah, so that's just a little bit of the content that we've been doing. Next slide. So really the objective of this parent training series, it's not to be in replacement of our home management services or more of that individualized behavior services, but a part of it that we kind of recognize is sometimes families are on a waiting list or they don't get the services right away. And there are tools and there are strategies that they could use to potentially minimize or just stabilize. So it may not reduce behavior or get rid of it right away, but these strategies, the hope is that by providing parents with some knowledge and some tools, that they could manage it and they're not feeling like they're in a crisis, or they're being a bit more stable, so that while they're waiting and they're ready for those services, it's not, they're not essentially in crisis. So just trying to provide an extra tool to families while they're waiting for services. Next slide. So we do have some upcoming trainings. So the next one that is upcoming, it is March 6th, 2024. It's again in person at George Webster Elementary School, but there is also virtual attendance, so you can register in person or online. And it's going to be focusing all on sleep. So we're going to be talking about sleep and some strategies that could potentially help with sleep. And then there is another session upcoming that will be presented by Hannah, and that's more of just an overview of community living resources, some extra resources that families can access outside of just behavioral services. And again, that's in person at George Webster Elementary School, and they also have the option of virtual attendance. Next slide. So we have done 2 training sessions already, specifically around challenging behavior. And these trainings are accessible on YouTube. So we do have video recordings. I have the link there, but they are also on the Community Living YouTube site. And right now they have the first training video up. The second session that we did recently that video should be coming up soon. Next slide. And if for more information, so if there is information that you'd like to know more about the parent training series, some of the stuff that we presented, you can always reach out to myself. My email is there, and also my co-facilitator, Ben, his email is there as well. And then for more information on just what we're doing and also just related resources, we also have Hannah Erdl, her email there as well. But yeah, so that's just my brief update of what we've been doing with the parent training series. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Atam, if we can put some of the email addresses in the chat, that would be very helpful. And thank you for shedding some light on the parent training series. This is indeed a great collaboration that will allow parents to feel more comfortable and confident in their part as a caregiver whilst they wait for services. So thank you so much. And now, last but not least, our update, I would like to invite Joe Persaud, Senior Director, Community Participation Supports and Respite, to give us an update. Joe, over to you.
Thanks, Betty, and welcome everyone. These sessions are always interesting and exciting for me, and it's so very nice to hear from Agnes, who truly remains a leadership icon of our sector. So that was great to hear and see her today. So for my presentation today, I'll provide an update on our CPS and respite offerings, along with an update on the implementation of our redesigned CPS model. As well, I'll share some fun and exciting activities in these programs and services over the last several months. Next slide, please. So a winter session of CPS programs across all locations is well underway for funded, fee-for-service, and virtual offerings, as are our children's respite services at Lawson in the east and Ennerdale in the west. Unfortunately, our new adult respite program at the renovated Sibley site has been delayed for occupancy. However, fresh off the presses, just before the webinar, I heard some good news from our CLTO team that the final obstacles for our building permit have now been overcome, and we can move forward with our plans for occupancy in the coming weeks. So we will continue to provide updates at family and friends webinars, our newsletters, socials, etc. So stay tuned, and that's exciting news to know that we can begin moving that forward. Next slide, please. So this slide is a reminder that you can register for our fee-for-service offerings at Community Junction and Creative Village Studio on My Community Hub. And please note, there are no classes on February 19th due to Family Day. Next slide, please. So virtual offering, if your family is looking for a virtual CPS option, check out our virtual options presently being offered by our partners at Recreational Respite. From Monday to Friday, 10 a.m., 1 p.m., 4 p.m., and on Saturdays, 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. And there's a wide range of session offerings that are open to both our funded community folks and our supported living customers. As well, these offerings are open on a fee-for-service basis to everyone in the community. If interested, please contact Caitlin Close, CPS manager, at your email address listed there on your screen, or at our general CPS email address. And a quick update that we are very close to launching our microsite, where you will be able to find all of CLTO, CPS, and respite information and offerings in one place and on an easy to navigate and user-friendly web page. So stay tuned for more on that as well, coming soon. And we're very excited about that customer-friendly site that we've developed. So next slide, please. So some updates on the progress of our redesigned CPS model. So as we continue to implement the model, here are some updates I just kind of flagged for sharing. So the winter session represents our third offering of the redesigned model, and we continue to use what we've learned from each session to improve and inform the following model. So some things that we've done is we've surveyed all supervisors of our supported living locations to learn about how they have implemented CPS and how they've used the tools and the engagements to date. And we received 100% response rate, which was amazing. We learned that all supported living locations have implemented monthly activity schedules, and the CPS leadership team will have access to these schedules on our SharePoint site and continue to engage and partner with our supported living leadership teams to promote accessing of bookable spaces at our CPS locations and welcome them to join our scheduled CPS offerings with their staff. And to support such initiatives, a community participation resource group will be created, and supported living locations will be identified for pilot initiatives to inform best practices at our supported living locations. And this will be a collaboration internally with our CPS leadership teams and supported living leadership teams, as well as welcoming subject matter experts internally. Another thing that we've done in terms of engagement, we've reached out to our external agencies with funded folks who attended our CPS programs prior to the pandemic to ensure all those who would like to return to our redesigned CPS model know that they are welcome to register. So we continue that engagement, and also learning that our sector partners regionally are doing similar activities that we are, so that we're in terms of CPS, so there's some sharing and learning happening there as well. And as we continue to offer more choices for CPS activities and the times of day, we will assess registration numbers and may collapse low enrolled session offerings into the higher enrolled session offerings to allow for more socialization and the efficient use of our staffing resources. So we balance choice and registration numbers. I'll now share some highlights and experiences for our CPS programs with you. Next slide, please. Great, thank you. So this is a really fun outing to Cookstown for Snow White and the Seven Aliens, which is a fun interactive audience interactive play at South Simcoe Theatre that our folks enjoyed very much. And during the intermission, everyone met the cast and took photos with them to remember the experience. And you see some of the photos there. Next slide, please. And just sharing around Foster's Clubhouse, as many of you may know, has been part of the Community Living Toronto's Adult Protective Service for many years, providing a safe and inclusive space of their own. Lorraine expressed better than I can how she experiences the welcoming and creative environment at the Foster's Clubhouse. Along with other interactive activities, the art workshops are facilitated monthly by an experienced art therapist, and these accessible art workshops encourage personal exploration and expressions by art participants, again, as demonstrated and shared with you by Lorraine. We appreciate that the funding has been generously donated through Central Council to support the art program, as well as art excursions. As well, addressing poverty and food insecurity is an important priority for this program. Therefore, a twice monthly food bank is held with additional food donations provided to our partners at the Harvest Wagon Grocery. Next slide, please. Thank you. And I should have, it seems that we coordinated really well with the influencers. So the influencers shared briefly in their presentations. We were happy to welcome the Minister of Diversity, Inclusion, and Persons with Disabilities, Kamal Khera, to the East Mall to honor International Day of Persons with Disabilities, which, as we all know, is recognized annually on December 3rd. This particular event was hosted on December 2nd during our regular program offerings, where the minister delivered insightful remarks, participated in the cake cutting ceremony, and took part in a tour of the facilities. You'll see on the slide there some quotes from the participants attending these small offerings after the meeting with Minister Khera and interacting with her and sharing their thoughts on those interactions. Next slide, please. So at CLTO, we pride ourselves on being a learning organization. So I'm just sharing that in the CPS program alone, we've welcomed a total of 13 student placements from local colleges across all of our CPS locations since our fall session began last year. We hope that by providing this opportunity for learning, it will attract these students to choose CLTO as their employer of choice, and they will spread the word about the opportunities that exist at CLTO to encourage these and other students to continue their relationship with us post-placement. And to continue to promote this recruitment effort, We've applied through the Canada Summer Jobs Initiative to be able to hire several summer students this summer. Essentially, these proactive efforts are an investment in equipping our workforce of the future. Next slide, please. So if you want to connect and you want to learn all about what I've shared with you and more, as well as if you have questions, here's a slide with our general email address and our general phone line for you to contact us anytime. And finally, I'd like to share with you on the next slide our Respite Initiative. So super exciting. We are very honored and proud to be in partnership with the Canadian Centre for Caregiving Excellence, the Azrieli Foundation, and Destination Toronto to offer this timely opportunity to families in our respite programs. This partnership allows us to offer up to 12 families accessing our respite services a weekend Toronto getaway for caregivers, which includes expenses paid for a hotel stay and meals for caregivers to relax, recharge, and renew. And here are some criteria that I'm sharing there that inform the selection of the families for our very first cohort of caregivers. So in order to how we consider and make decisions, the opportunities are limited. Sorry, that's my time is up, but I'll cover those last few points. Multiple challenging situations, deteriorating health of the caregiver, single parent household, multiple children with complex needs. And those are just some of the criteria. To learn more about the partnership, the next slide has contact information for our general contact for respite, as well as our leadership team, whatever you would like to use to contact us. And thank you all very much for attending today. And back to you, Patty.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you did put that timer for yourself, Joe. Thank you for giving us an update on the activities and programs that are in store for our family and friends. And indeed, the Foster's Clubhouse definitely holds some beautiful memories. Thank you for sharing the updates. And please do reach out to the team members for any further information. The recording will be circulated if Atam has not put the contact details in the chat. As we come to the end, my sincerest thanks to everyone who joined us today and our presenters. It was a pleasure to have you with us and was a great start to the year. And a special thank you again to Agnes for joining us, and what a wonderful chat. Our next Family and Friends update will be recorded and released on February 20. In March, we'll have a live update, and please feel free to let us know any topics or stories you want us to include on the agenda. We thank you for your continued support. We look forward to sharing more stories from our community. Thank you, everyone, and have a great afternoon.